They called it the most haunted house in England for a reason, didn't they? But what really went down within the crumbling walls of Borley Rectory? We're not just scratching the surface here. We're cracking open the old case files to reveal the chilling, bone-deep eyewitness accounts and the baffling evidence that pointed to a ghostly nun and a truly terrifying poltergeist haunting its very foundations. Was it a genuine, undeniable haunting? A place where the veil between worlds was impossibly thin? Or was it, as some skeptics argue, the most elaborate, brilliantly orchestrated ghost story ever told? A PR stunt that spiraled into legend? Let's find out. Before a single brick of Borley Rectory was even laid, long before the first foundation stone kissed the soil, the locals in this quiet corner of Essex already had their whispers. They spoke of a medieval monastery, its ruins long gone that once stood nearby. And with that monastery came a tale, a campfire staple passed down through generations, making the hairs on your arms stand on end. It was the classic, tragic love story, a monk and a nun, their vows of celibacy shattered by an undeniable, forbidden passion. They dared to fall in love, and oh, did they pay the price. The monk, they said, was hanged for his transgression, his life snuffed out in a brutal display. The nun, her fate was even more gruesome. She was bricked up alive in the monastery's cold, damp cellar walls, condemned to a slow, agonizing death, her screams forever echoing in the earth. And here's where it gets truly unsettling. The ground itself, it seemed, remembered. It held onto that pain, that injustice, that sorrow. So when Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull, a man of God seeking a peaceful rural life, decided to build his new rectory in 1862, he unknowingly, or perhaps fatefully, picked the exact cursed spot where the nun was said to have met her horrifying end. If you're one to believe the old lore, and frankly, after hearing this, how could you not be a little swayed? Then the very foundations of Borley Rectory were steeped in tragedy and cursed energy before the first brick even met its mortar. It was almost as if the house was destined for darkness, built upon a bedrock of ancient suffering. For the first 4 decades, life inside Borley Rectory was, by all accounts, almost criminally boring. The Bull family, a respectable clerical household, went about their days. They raised children, tending to their spiritual and earthly needs, cultivated beautiful gardens, and hosted endless, perfectly proper parish teas. It was the picture of Victorian domesticity, utterly unremarkable. Then, around the turn of the century, 1900 rolled around and the mundane began to unravel. The footsteps started. Slow, deliberate, heavy footsteps crossing the landing in the dead of night, when only silence should reign. Can you imagine the chill? Servants, usually stout-hearted folk, began to report locked doors swinging open with an unseen force, and objects subtly yet unmistakably moving on their own. One guest, visiting from London, swore she saw a dark, indistinct shape glide across the moonlit lawn, moving with an eerie purpose before simply vanishing through the solid churchyard wall. It wasn't just a trick of the light, it was a presence. Reverend Bull's daughters, perhaps trying to rationalize the inexplicable or simply to keep their sanity, even gave the presence a rather polite, almost British nickname, the Visitor, but they kept quiet about it, you know. Wouldn't want to scare off any potential husbands with talk of specters and things that go bump in the night. By the time the Reverend passed away in 1892, his family having endured these subtle, creeping disturbances for years, the stories had already seeped into the local pubs. Borley wasn't just another quaint country house anymore, it was becoming the Borley, a place whispered about with a shiver and a knowing glance. The seed of its legendary haunting had been well and truly planted. When the Reverend's son inherited the place, understandably, he rented it out. Who wouldn't? Enter Reverend Guy Smith and his wife Mary in 1928, along with their truckload of very modern optimism. They arrived expecting peace, quiet, and perhaps a bit of country charm. What they got instead was pure, unadulterated chaos. Keys didn't just get misplaced, they hurled themselves across rooms with alarming force. Lights didn't just flicker, they switched off entirely mid-sermon prep, plunging the room into instant darkness. And in one particularly violent incident, a servant received a nasty black eye from a flying cooking pot. A flying cooking pot. This wasn't just a draft, this was something with intent. But perhaps the most disturbing phenomenon of all was the nightly scribbling. Strange, looped handwriting would appear on the scullery wall, seemingly out of nowhere. The words were always the same: "Marianne, and please help." Mrs. Smith, a practical woman, tried everything. She scrubbed the plaster raw, painting over the messages in a desperate attempt to erase the unsettling plea. But with the stubborn persistence of a nightmare, the words would bleed back through by dawn, as if the very walls themselves were crying out. After just 10 months, the couple had had enough. They fled Borley, leaving behind their hopes for a peaceful life and, more importantly, a signed statement for the local paper. Its stark message echoed their terror. Something malevolent walks Borley, and we cannot stay. It wasn't a casual observation. It was a desperate warning. News of the Smiths' dramatic midnight exodus didn't stay confined to the local parish rags. Oh no, it reached the ears of London's prestigious Society for Psychical Research, a group always keen for a juicy, well-documented case. And who should step forward but the flamboyant, self-proclaimed ghost hunter Harry Price? A true showman and a darling of the press, Price wasn't one to shy away from a spectacle. He loaded his van with all the latest paranormal investigation tech of the era: heavy, clunky cameras, primitive phonographs to capture spectral voices, and perhaps most importantly, a hefty 50 pounds check for exclusive access to the rectory. He meant business. From 1929 to 1936, Price spent countless weekends at the rectory, meticulously logging over 200 distinct phenomena. This wasn't just a casual visit, it was an extended, dedicated investigation that would seal Borley's fate in the annals of paranormal history. His star evidence, the kind that made headlines, included a sealed bottle of holy water, placed carefully in an empty room that inexplicably shattered with no one near it. Even more bizarre were the plaster casts he made of footprints found on the dusty floors, impressions that started as a woman's bare foot, eerily delicate but then unbelievably ended as cloven marks, as if something demonic had walked through the house. Price's 1940 book, boldly titled The Most Haunted House in England, became an instant sensation, selling out in a week. It wasn't just a book, it was a declaration, cementing Borley's reputation as the undisputed champion of haunted locales. Price, ever the thorough investigator, knew he needed more than just weekend visits. He needed full-time live-in witnesses, people who would experience the rectory's terrors day in and day out. So he managed to convince Reverend Lionel Foister, his wife Marianne, and their adopted daughter Adelaide to move in rent-free. What a deal, right? A free house, just ignore the flying objects and ghostly nuns. They lasted 5 harrowing years, a testament to their resilience or perhaps their desperation, making them the longest-staying family in the rectory's documented history. But their stay wasn't peaceful, far from it. The poltergeist activity, as if emboldened by their presence, ramped up to a terrifying degree. Poor Marianne was frequently tossed from her chair by an invisible force, hitting the floor with a painful thud. Adelaide, a child, would find her toys not just moved but disturbingly arranged into occult symbols, a chilling message from the unseen. Visitors to the rectory weren't spared either, often pelted with pebbles inside the house, an impossible feat. Yet perhaps the most chilling discovery came when the Foisters, while exploring the neglected cellar, unearthed a woman's jawbone beneath the flagstones. Dental records matched no local missing person, adding another layer of mystery. But a séance conducted later claimed it belonged to Marie Laer, a French nun said to have been strangled for love in 1667, eerily echoing the original legend. Whether true or not, the skull was reverently boxed and locked in a church vault. But the knocking, the inexplicable banging and rapping only grew louder, as if the spirits were protesting the removal of their macabre trophy. During Price's final, most ambitious investigation in 1938, he decided to leave no stone unturned, no corner unchecked. He and a dedicated team of volunteers sealed the house, meticulously chalking every door and window and wiring tiny bells to the latches. The goal was simple: to detect any unauthorized entry, any human interference. For 7 tense nights, they maintained a vigil, and then fresh, pencil-like scribbles began to appear on previously blank walls. These weren't subtle marks, they were bold, defiant messages. The phrase, "I am Marie Laer, I was murdered," materialized, signed with a looping, distinctly 17th century style M. Photographs from the time are truly astonishing, showing letters 6 feet high, scrawled at shoulder level without any ladder marks or discernible way for a human hand to reach them. Critics, of course, later jumped on this, claiming the team could have faked the script with a concealed stick or some other clever trick. But consider the sheer scale of the writings, the impossibility of creating such neat, high marks without obvious tools, and the fact that the house was under constant, watchful observation by multiple people. The idea of pulling off such a stunt, undetected, seemed near impossible, even for a seasoned trickster. The writings remained, a haunting, tangible message from beyond. The eternal question, isn't it? Was Borley Rectory a genuine horror show, a portal to the beyond, or just a really, really good hoax? Skeptics, and there were many, often point an accusing finger at Harry Price's well-known love of publicity. He was, after all, a showman. There were whispers, too, from neighbors who claimed to have seen Price's assistants smashing bottles for sound effects, creating their own poltergeist noises. And let's not forget the former caretaker who, years later, admitted he'd written some of the messages on the walls himself just for a laugh, or so he said. Add to this the frustrating lack of modern forensic controls. No DNA analysis, no motion sensors, just human observation. And the whole case, for some, looks decidedly shaky. It's hard to ignore those claims of trickery. Yet you can't dismiss the other side so easily, can you? Independent witnesses, people with nothing to gain and reputations to lose, came forward. Policemen, hard-nosed journalists, even a future bishop. These weren't easily fooled individuals. They signed sworn affidavits describing phenomena that defy rational explanation. Bricks levitating right before their eyes, bells ringing in perfect sequence when no one was touching them, and cold spots so intense that their breath misted in the air, even in the middle of a warm July. The Society for Psychical Research, after years of deliberation, finally weighed in, delivering a verdict that, frankly, pleased nobody. They labeled the phenomena unexplained but likely exaggerated. It's a classic fence-sitting statement, a non-committal shrug that keeps the debate alive and thriving, ensuring Borley Rectory remains a tantalizing enigma. Then, on a cold, fateful night, February 27, 1939, the story of Borley Rectory took its most dramatic turn yet. A workman's lamp, left unattended in the rectory's library, toppled over. The blaze, fueled by decades of dry timber, roared to life, tearing through the old house with terrifying speed. Roofs collapsed inwards, stained glass windows melted into grotesque puddles, and the once grand rectory became an inferno. Locals gathered, drawn by the orange glow against the night sky, watching in stunned silence as embers rose like tormented spirits, dancing upwards into the darkness. Fire crews arrived, but the damage was already done. They found no accelerants, no suspicious insurance claims, just charred rubble, and a cellar now open to the cold, uncaring stars. Within days, even before the last wisps of smoke had vanished, sightseers swore they could still see her, the ghostly nun, walking the outline of the vanished walls, her pale face a stark contrast against the soot-stained remnants. Whether the fire was a tragic accident or some dark, providential act, its destruction sealed Borley Rectory's legend forever. No future family could move in and disprove the haunting. No new investigations could truly debunk the tales, because the house itself was gone. It became a ghost of a building, its physical form removed, but its spectral presence more potent than ever. The fire didn't end the story. It simply transformed it, making the rectory an indelible part of England's haunted folklore. Today, if you were to visit the site, you wouldn't find a grand rectory or even crumbling ruins. What you'd see is just a quiet patch of Essex grass, tucked away behind a farm gate. A few worn foundation stones, stubbornly poking through the moss, are the only tangible reminders of what once stood there. English heritage, ever the discreet guardians of history, maintains a small, understated plaque, a subtle nod to the site's infamous past. Yet despite the physical absence, the stories refuse to rest. They cling to the air, to the very soil. Walk the lane at dusk, when the shadows stretch long and the world grows quiet, and locals will tell you that you might still hear it. Footsteps crunching gravel that no longer exists, a phantom echo of past residents. Modern paranormal groups, armed with their sophisticated equipment, still make pilgrimages to Borley. They leave voice recorders running overnight, hoping to capture an EVP, an electronic voice phenomenon. And sometimes, just sometimes, they claim to pick up faint ethereal Latin chanting, a chilling remnant of the monastery that predated the rectory. Whether it's just suggestion, the wind whispering through the trees, or truly something older, something profound and supernatural, the effect is undeniably the same. Borley Rectory, even in its absence, keeps claiming the imagination of anyone who hears its name, pulling them into its enduring mystery. If you've made it this far, you already know the burning question. Was Borley Rectory a genuine, terrifying haunting, or simply the most elaborate, brilliantly executed Edwardian PR stunt to ever captivate a nation? Drop your verdict in the comments below. We're dying to hear what you think. Hit that like button if a shiver just crawled up your spine, and definitely subscribe for more forgotten true tales from Britain's dark, enigmatic corners. Trust us, the next story is already waiting, lurking in the shadows.